So, at what point did a woman's right become the responsibility of America? And since when did a doctor have to have a law degree to practice medicine in the United States of America? Journey with me back into the void of intelligence. So, at what point did a woman's right to choose become everyone's responsibility? And at what point did becoming a doctor ever meant having to get a law degree? Let's jump back into the void of intelligence. Welcome back into the void of intelligence, where today we discuss women's right to choose, the overturning of Roe versus Wade, and how is it affecting doctors as well as you and me. Welcome back to the void of intelligence, where we discuss. Welcome back to the void of intelligence, where we today. Welcome back to the void of intelligence, where today we discuss the overturning of Roe versus Wade and how it's affecting doctors across this great nation. So, before we begin, let's discuss Roe versus Wade. In the early 70s, Roe versus Wade protected a woman's right to an abortion at the federal level. So, for those of you who don't know, we're going to go to one of the most major sources that there is when it comes to research. Now, I don't always recommend this, but for most cases where there are specific dates and things where no one's going to let you get it wrong without double checking once or twice, we are going to go to Wikipedia just to shorten this up a little bit. So, Roe v. Wade, 1973, was a landmark decision of the U.S. Supreme Court in which the court ruled that the Constitution of the United States conferred the right to choose to have an abortion. The decision struck down many federal and state abortion laws and fueled an ongoing abortion debate in the United States about whether or not, to what extent, an abortion should be legal. Who should decide the legality of abortion, and what the role of moral and religious views in the political sphere should be. The decision also shaped debate concerning which methods the Supreme Court should use in constitutional adjudication. So, I'm an English major. I have a degree in English. Let's break some of this down. So the major thing that struck across to me was that in the part that said who should decide the legality of abortion and what role of moral and religious views in the political sphere should be. So two things most people might have an issue with. One of them is that there's supposed to be a separation of church and state. So right now you're actually saying who should decide the legality of abortion and what the role of moral and religious views in the political sphere should be. So two, we've got religion involved, and we all know in regards to religion that some folks will use religion as a backup in case of emergency or to use as fuel in the fire of a very controversial topic such as this. Not only that, but religion is very heavily influenced in politics, especially if you're in certain areas like the South, or if you are in certain demographics like the African American demographic, where a lot of the times you will see people politicize and also run and demonstrate their platforms to the African Americans, and most times they're going to hit them in church. So to me, those two things in Roe versus Wade will always be a factor, is the political temperature in the economy or in the country, of course, and also religious reasons. Because we all know we're all good God-fearing people to whatever God that you serve. So we're going to use God as a determining factor in what you should do or not do. Let's continue. The case was brought by Norma McCorvey, known by the legal pseudonym Jane Roe. In 1969, became pregnant with her third child. McCorvey wanted an abortion But she lived in Texas where abortion was legal, except when necessary to save the mother's life. Hold on, pause, stop right there. So once again, in regards to all the propaganda that people may use about abortion, and the point which I'll be hitting upon multiple times today, abortion is not totally illegal. Okay? It would be totally impossible to make abortion illegal because in the law and in Roe versus Wade itself, in Texas, where this whole thing started, the law says abortion was illegal except when necessary to save the mother's life. So a lot of times whenever you take those little things out, it makes a big difference, because we all know that's way too much to put on a bumper sticker. Abortion is illegal except when necessary to save the mother's life. Okay, it's kind of like Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter too. Okay, but don't want to go on a tangent there. Her attorneys, Sarah Whittington and Linda Coffey, filed a suit on her behalf in the U.S. federal court against her local district attorney, Henry Wade, alleging that Texas abortion laws were unconstitutional. A special three-judge court of the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Texas heard the case and ruled in her favor. The parties appealed this ruling to the Supreme Court. Big shock. And which is going to be things to come in regards to the overturning of Roe v. Wade. There are going to be a lot of cases and a lot of individual areas where the abortion and the case of abortion is going to be not to say upheld, but to be in favor of the woman who is getting an abortion. And what's going to happen is it's going to go right back up to the Supreme Court. So congratulations, Supreme Court. You overturned the rule, and now you're going to get more paperwork instead of getting less paperwork. Okay, we'll get to that later on in our discussion. On January 22nd, 1973, the Supreme Court issued a 7-2 decision holding that the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution provides a fundamental right to privacy, which protects a pregnant woman's rights to abortion. The court also held that the right to abortion is not absolute and must be balanced against the government's interest in protecting the women's health and prenatal life. Okay, platform of the right. Conservatism, Republicans, they do not want big government. This is a perfect example of the government intervening into the public's business. However, let's just bring this point across. The government has been interfering in the lives of women for as long as we know, okay? In the beginning, they had to give women the right to vote. Well, women had to take the right to vote. Women are now in the process of getting equal pay for equal work. And now Roe v. Wade gets overturned. So you notice a pattern here where sometimes women can be treated like second citizens in their own country. So with that being said, Roe v. Wade being overturned is another example of men telling women what to do with their reproductive organs. So, like we said, the United States have a history of intervening in regards to women and their reproductive processes. January 28th, Washington Post. Somewhere gray areas in the new abortion bans force a choice between breaking their oath and breaking the law. The High Court's decision sending the power to regulate abortion back to the states means that there are now 50 states with varying approaches, each with their unique language and interpretation of where to draw the line between when the procedure is appropriate and when it's a crime. Now we're going into the doctor's offices, and now we're going to force doctors to put on a lawyer's hat. The law does not make an exception to the ban for rape or incest, but people seeking abortion in those circumstances are required to provide a copy of a report from a law enforcement agency to a physician. It's hard enough for a doctor to do their job. It's hard enough for an OBGYN, gynecologist, any type of obstetrician to be able to do their job, especially in regards to the lives of a mother and an unborn child. Now, those doctors that had to spend anywhere between 6 and 10 years between college, residency, and actually on the floor doing their job, now are going to have to go back into law school, because now they have to determine where is the bar. Can it be consistent? Of course not, because we have 50 different states. And as soon as it was consistent for the past 50 years, being that it was federally okay, you overturn that and put it right back into the hands of each individual state, therefore making it more muddled, more confusing, and then depending where you are practicing, the laws will change. Abortion will not go away. Political affiliations aside, it is as old as the Puritans and medicine itself. As a matter of fact, abortion was used by the upper class in regards to do a level of population control. And also, like they said, the truth is, in instances where the mother's life is in danger. And I hate to say that it has never been about the unborn child in most instances. So the baloney now, when we talk about pro-life having to be more about the child than the mother, it's more of a guilt trip to those that have to go through the atrocious life experiences of incest or rape or any type of domestic crime in where the result was a woman getting pregnant against her will. Let's continue on. NPR article, June 24th. Reproductive Rights in America. Miss Selena Simmons Duffman. Physicians and medical groups didn't always champion abortion. That's the truth. Doctors played a key role in the movement to outlaw abortion in the United States in the 1860s, specifically doctors who were a member of the American Medical Association, which I'll refer to as the AMA going forward. Today's AMA is become increasingly vocal in support of abortion rights. A few years ago, it sued North Dakota over an abortion ban. In a statement released Friday, and that was the Friday from June 24th, AMA President Dr. Jack Resnick Jr. condemned the Dobbs ruling and said it is a direct attack on the practice of medicine and the patient-physician relationship, and a brazen violation of patient rights to evidence-based reproductive health services. He also said, bless you, that the AMA will fight these restrictions, which may signal more legal action from the group on abortion. More confusion, Supreme Court. Now the doctors cannot do their job without interference or without fear of losing their licenses or without fear of being disbarred. So now I have to worry about, do I perform this life-saving or life-threatening procedure, whichever way you may see it, here, or do I have to go and pick up my practice and go somewhere else? The AMA hasn't surveyed its 270,000 due-paying doctors at the moment about abortion specifically. He also says the individual physicians may have religious or conscience-based objections to abortion, but as an organization, the AMA is united in fighting excessive government intrusion into medical care. Last point on this. We speak with one voice against government, politicians and lawyers and judges in the exam room, whether it's maternal, fetal medicine, women's reproductive health, gender identity, and medical treatments, he said. We need to be more outspoken and protect our ability to perform medically appropriate, safe abortion and be able to teach that. Here we go. You're putting the power back in the hands of the state instead of protecting the doctors who perform the procedures. What do you think is going to happen whenever doctors who are trained properly into doing these procedures are no longer able to do these procedures without the fear of losing their licenses? More people are going to end up in the hospital, in the emergency room for trying to do it their own way or going to less reputable sources in order to have this procedure that you think you are going to eliminate. It's not going to happen. Choice versus life. That impossible choice has already been a feature of reproductive health care in the South for years. Dr. Louise King, an obstetrician and gynecologist at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, who's also an attorney and ethicist. Wow, that's a lot of cups of coffee and a lot of books that were read to have all those hats. It's just going to get much, much worse, she says. Laws will exist to ask physicians to deprioritize the person in front of them and to act in a way that is medically harmful. And the penalty for not doing so will be loss of license, money loss, potentially even criminal sanction, King explains. How can you possibly resolve that conflict? You cannot. Hello, South, where we mix our religion with our politics and our politics with the way that we run our communities and our medicine and our lives. In regards to hospitals, typically hospitals are not vocal about providing abortion care because they don't want to invite controversy and protest on the street. That makes sense. We don't want to disrupt patient care, she says. But the country has reached a tipping point, she argues. Abortion providers like her should all be very proud of the care that they provide and very vocal about how they all believe it to be essential health care. You're not going to stop it from happening. A law cannot stop something that's been happening before the laws themselves were written. Okay? You got two options, and I'm going to tell you what those options are in a minute. Last source, CNBC, Spencer Kimball, July 11th. Human and health is from the HHS, Key Points, which is the Health and Human Services Department of the federal government. Federal law preempts state abortion bans in cases where women face medical emergencies associated with pregnancy. Secretary Xavier Becerra told healthcare providers. States that have banned abortion generally make exceptions if the woman's life is in danger. But U.S. health officials are concerned physicians will wait too long to treat complications. Hospitals that decline to provide abortion in these cases could have their Medicare provider agreements terminated or face financial penalties, Becerra said. Let's skip away for a second. Any type of argument in favor of the overturning of Roe v. Wade for things such as cutting healthcare costs is a bunch of baloney, because you're going to shift those healthcare costs into different areas, okay? Like I said, if someone decides to do a procedure themselves and end up in the hospital, insurance is still going to have to cover that emergency, okay? You're not going to be able to scare doctors, specific doctors. You're not going to be able to scare hospitals, according to the HHS, and you're not going to be able to prevent something from happening. Becerra said such medical emergencies include, but are not limited to, ectopic pregnancies, complications from miscarriages, and hypertensive disorders such as preeclampsia that usually occurs after 20 weeks of pregnancy. Preeclampsia results in high blood pressure, severe headaches, and blurred vision. The condition can lead to fatal complications if untreated. Under the law, no matter where you live, women have the right to emergency care, including abortion care, Becerra says. We are reinforcing that we expect providers to continue offering services and that federal law preempts state abortion bans when needed for emergency care. So we're going all the way back to the 70s, full circle, when the original law was created. In the case of emergency, or in case of the endangerment of the mother, abortions are not illegal, period. My thoughts in regards to everything, women's health. Women need to be in the room when those decisions are made. Too often they're not. That's a big problem. Most men are not in control in their own homes of when their children were created. To overstep their boundaries in this, which is one of many laws directed specifically at women, is an example of how far we have come in the history of this country. To quote Tupac, how can a man tell a woman when and where to create one? But with the law being overturned, it's going to be harder, but not impossible. Several individual state governments have put blocks in the case of some of these trigger laws, like in Louisiana, pushing back against the overturning of Roe v. Wade and still allowing doctors and clinics and hospitals to make those procedures where they deem fit and necessary, which will always be the case in regards to doctors and the Hippocratic Oath. This is do no harm, okay? That's the purpose of federal government. And in most instances, it's whenever things are kind of hard or things get tough, they kick it back to the state level. In essence, they're not doing any help. They're actually doing more harm and creating delays in the system, which was created to protect the people. I take in comparison to taking a call third strike in the bottom of the ninth inning with 2 outs instead of swinging for the fences. I know in the stat sheet in the end it's going to look the same, that there was an out. But for those that were there in attendance, they will be able to talk about the attempt that was made to make it right instead of sending it back like an overcooked steak. Pick a poison, everyone. In regards to Roe v. Wade, the overturning of abortion and its legality from a federal standpoint, education plus contraception or abortion, making it legal. It's easier to me if you're going to do one. You can't do one without the other. Regulation is the key if you want any type of consistency, control, or measure of fairness. It's not just the law. It affects the lives of women. It affects the lives of children. It affects the lives of family. It also affects the bottom line when it comes to insurance. It also affects the doctors that are doing these procedures because they're not comfortable doing what they went to school and that they're comfortable of doing and believe that they're doing help in those situations. And it also affects medicine because now some medicines are being held or not being allowed to be prescribed due to the fact that they may be part of some concoction used for abortions. So now we're going to get another level of big government stepping in when you thought you were taking a step back. Literally, you're just shifting side to side instead of making any forward progress on the situation. To me, this is big government, guys, and morality. Choosing to defend one life instead of both. Choosing to also pit people against each other based upon religious differences, political affiliation, when actually this is a life case. And when it hits home, it's always different. When someone comes home due to in a domestic situation and they're pregnant, now it hits home. When someone is told in that first trimester that the child that they're carrying will not be the next president of the United States due to some type of handicap or some type of issue in regards to conception, what do you tell them? It's kind of hard, right? When in essence, all we can do and hope for is if you educate people in these ways, where you educate them into safe procedures, not being reckless in regards to your sexuality, and informing people options that they do have. If we're really, really serious about this, you don't have to wave the red flag of abortion in people's faces as a scare tactic when you can just tell them, okay, you may not want to continue with this, but here are options that you may want to consider. Adoption. Serious adoption here, ladies and gentlemen. Not just the adoption where it's like going to the mall where I get to pick the best looking baby or the child with the best genes, and I get to look up all of the different DNA and facts like it's a Carfax report, instead of just seeing an individual child like my partner here and seeing that this person wants an opportunity to be the best that they can. And if you can provide that, then hey, guess what? It may all be worth it in the end, because on top of all of those issues, the mental health issues and torture that may come along with the things such as incest, rape, domestic issues in regards to conception of an unwanted child, those things may riddle a woman to a point where she's not capable up here of raising a child. And not oftentimes the family is going to want to participate in the raising of said child. We can go back throughout history where there have been cover-ups where, grandparents have raised grandchildren under the disguise that they were their kids. And essentially, sisters were really mother and daughter. Also, the instances where babies were left in places because they didn't want them anymore. When babies were abandoned. And, so really, is it that much better to say that you gave birth to a child and you abandon it, other than not wanting to have any other, it's not for me to judge. But I also know that if you give people an option and educate them of those options, 9 times out of 10, the correct decision is going to be made. And guess what? If you're really about helping the situation, step in there, do things properly. Because the cost, the medical cost being cut, the fact that you're offering all these different things, or pretty much religious shaming someone based upon their situation, it's not going to help the environment. It's not going to help the temperature of this nation as a whole. And putting it back into the states is really a cop-out and further makes it a political ploy. And especially with what's going on in the world today, in regards to who's in control of the government and what parts of government, it seems like the government is really just trying to hit softballs off the tee instead of really trying to take care of these real political issues that are out there, such as mental health, such as the war out there on drugs, and other many different environmental and domestic issues like terrorism on our own soil that really need to be addressed. No one will ever agree. That's human nature. We all have enough intelligence to find common ground, or at least provide certain levels of practice. To me, that's freedom. To me, medicine, without being handicapped, was the reason that we've come so far as a nation. Because even with differing opinion, the end game was always the same. And that was to provide the best care to the people that they're servicing. That is to not do harm in areas where they can. And to be the best civil servants, along with our police, along with our military, along with those that service from a civil standpoint. Don't hamper our doctors. Don't tie their hands. Give the doctors the freedom that they need for them to do their jobs. Have the faith in doctors for them to make the right decision where it's needed. Don't try and manipulate the system by going through doctors in regards to slowing down any process that's needed in regards to this issue that's hampering America and the world for that matter. But with that being said, thank you for joining me into the void of intelligence. I know today was a heavy topic, but I appreciate you staying towards the end of this video. I know there may have been topics or points that I may have missed, but please believe me, all of these situations, all of these discussions are always open-ended, and we can always revisit this at a later time. So if you got any questions, any comments, please drop them at the bottom. I'll be appreciative and ready and willing to respond. Please also like and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to make something happen here. I appreciate all of your views, all of your comments, all of your opinions. And until next time, thank you for joining me into the void of intelligence.